All right, so why we're all here today is to hear the amazing Taylor tell his story. You guys, this man has an unbelievable story to share, and it is such an honor and a privilege that he is willing to get up on stage in front of all of you and share it. So I am really excited for you to get to know him and love him and to be able to go on this incredible journey with Taylor. So please help me welcome Taylor Coibion.
That was nice. I like the beat. Gosh, everybody. Inspired leaders, how are we doing today? Can I get a hallelujah? Hallelujah. We are in church and we are leaders. Can I get a hallelujah? Hallelujah. I love it. Everybody, it's been a long time since I've been on a stage and it feels so good. It does. It really does. But it didn't always used to be that way. Actually, I used to be very terrified of public speaking. Standing up in a room like this would have been miserable for me. I probably would have squirmed and ran away and come up with some sort of reason not to attend. And that all changed sophomore year in high school. See, I realized, I've got this fear. I don't like being in front of people, especially people like y'all, because I don't know a lot of y'all. It was scary. So what do you do? You look at the extracurricular activities and you go down the list. What's going to throw me in the midst of public speaking? Alphabetical order, first one that showed up was debate. Well, me and debate were not friends, okay? Freshman year, we had standardized testing, and the classroom was led by the debate teacher. So we all finished early thinking we'd get to chill, but we didn't. We got paired with somebody, and we had to debate them, and I lost. And then I curled into a little ball, and I got down, and I cried, not in front of everybody else, maybe a little, but more so at home by myself. But now, look at me today, in front of you guys. Fearless, not afraid. How did we get there? Well, somewhere along the way, I realized, okay, fear. It's a lot of adrenaline. Wait a minute. Adrenaline. Instead of running away from fear, I could run towards adrenaline, and would that make me an adrenaline junkie? Yes, it would. That sounds sexy, doesn't it? Adrenaline junkie. Taylor Coibion, the adrenaline junkie, versus Taylor Coibion, the coward. I don't know. I like adrenaline junkie. I'm going this way, guys. So, how did we get to this mindset of running towards fear? Because it wasn't always like that. I actually used to run highly away from fear. I was terrified from all of it, not just immersing myself in these situations to try to overcome it. And to figure out how this happened, we have to dive back into time. We actually have to start before I was born. We have to start with my 16-year-old mother. My mom was amazing, let me tell you. She was beautiful, she was smart, she had tons of friends. 16 years old, she had a job at a dental office. And then she met this guy. He was kind of handsome. She was kind of pretty. They got to know one another. They started talking and chatting. Time goes by. He became her Romeo, and they became an item. Time is fast forwarded now. Now she's 17. He's 36. He's got her addicted to drugs. He's beating her, hurting her, scaring her. He's selling her on the streets for sexual acts. He's sex trafficking her all over Houston. So that way he could get more drugs, more money, favors. Somewhere along the way during that time, I was conceived. And with my first day being born, just a couple hours later, he pulled her out of the hospital and I got to attend my first party. That's why I'm so hip. Partying at a young age. See, if you didn't know this, in the early 90s, human trafficking wasn't really well understood. So it was a difficult realm to navigate. So my grandparents, they spent the last dollar that they had on a private investigator. And that private investigator helped find me. And when they did, they found me alone in a chair, crying, covered in cocaine, surrounded by liquor bottles. Everybody else is passed out. Couch, floor, hallway, bathroom. And that was the day that my grandparents saved my life. My mom was not so lucky. She was last seen at a gas station talking to her Romeo, her trafficker, and then getting into a yellow station wagon with an escaped serial rapist and serial murderer that made it to the United States from Poland with help from his sister. That was the last day that she was seen, and she remained a cold case for 18 years. He raped her, bashed her skull in, and dumped her body in a dump zone in New Caney. See, it happens here, guys. So needless to say, I had some childhood trauma. My mind was a very scary place. Little Taylor had a lot going on in there, and it wasn't positive. It was very, very negative. Suicidal thoughts constantly. Self-loathing, loathing for the world, depression, anxiety, fear, anger, rage. And not just myself, but everybody. So I had to stay busy because I was terrified of myself. I was terrified of this and alone time with it. It was like my own personal horror film, but always going in my head. So, needless to say, the school system might have had a hard time with a trauma onset ADHD kid that doesn't like to sit still, will complete their coursework, and start doing anything and everything that they want. I was in all honors classes, number one, except for Juliana. We'd go back and forth. Number one, number two in my class, all honors classes, but with a very, very, very consistent U for unsatisfactory conduct. Hard U, every report card. Until one day, my file turned into a file cabinet, and the school system decided to tell my parents, my grandparents, we don't know how to deal with Taylor. We think that Taylor has a lot of issues going on due to the traumatic events that he's incurred in his life. And we don't know how to teach him anymore. So we're going to need him to undergo some psychiatric evaluation, or he's not going to be able to be a student here. My grandparents complied. Why wouldn't they? They need their son to have a school. So little Taylor goes off to a psychiatric facility, and it was kind of cool at first, guys. It was kind of chill. It was 3 square meals a day. You get some playtime. You get a roommate to bunk with. That's not too shabby. He was older, which I thought was kind of cool. He was about to age into the teenage ward. I was little. Look at me. I'm skinny. I was a little 50-pound kid, about yay high. So first night, fell asleep, having sweet dreams. And then all of a sudden, I wake up. But I wake up with a hand over my nose and my mouth. And I can't breathe, and I feel a sharp object against my throat. And I hear a voice saying, if you make a sound, or if you move, I'm going to kill you. It was my roommate. Of course, I complied. I didn't want to die. Who wants to die? He rolled me over, put a pillow on the back of my head, still hard to breathe, and he proceeded to rape me. Next morning, they get you up at 5, right? They come get you. I was not quiet. I was like, I'm out, go. Hey, this guy, he put a sharp object to my throat. I think it was a sharpened Monopoly piece, and he raped me. They proceeded to say, okay, Taylor, the doctor's not here yet. We're going to look into this, but we need you to go back to your room. I said, go back to my room with him? This guy? Yes, until the doctor arrives. Like, no, not going to do it. No, not for me. That's not my life. They grab me by the arm, try to pull me down. I was like, no, not happening. Another lady comes by, grabs my other arm, and like, no, dead body, not taking me. Guy comes over, picks me up. I'm like, little foot to the face, go, let me down, put me down, go, stop it. Well, they did put me down. They put me to sleep. And then I woke up, and it was time to see the doctor. And I see my grandparents in the doctor's office. Door shuts behind. I'm like, yes, y'all about to get it now. I'm out of here. This place sucks. This is not happening again. My grandfather looked me dead in the eye. He said, Taylor, I need you to behave. We need you to listen. I was kind of shocked. I was like, you know what? You don't know what happened. I see the problem. You don't know. It's okay. You don't know. Hey, roommate, sharp object to throat, rape me, get him. Get me out of here. Doctor looked over at my grandparents and said, Mr. and Mrs. Coibion, we've investigated the situation. We searched the room. We searched the other kid in question. He doesn't seem to know what Taylor's talking about. We couldn't find any sharpened object, certainly not a sharpened Monopoly piece. We think Taylor's having a hard time acclimating here, and we're going to need him to get in line, or we're not going to be able to help him. My grandpa put on a stern voice. Taylor, hey, you got to behave. You need to listen. In that moment, I remember this sense of emptiness. Every hope that I had was gone. Everything that I expected, the adults, they're supposed to save the day, right? They're supposed to save the littles. Big, save the littles. No one was saving me. So, emptiness, no hope, I go back. And he's angry. And so for the next 2 weeks, I was raped every night. And it got rougher. I wasn't on top of a mattress. I'm underneath the mattress. I'm shoved up against a wall, getting suffocated by an alligator stuffed animal. So finally you get out, and now I'm on 3 different medications. I'm on ADHD medication, antipsychotics, antidepressants. My entire mind and being is completely controlled, subdued, and shut down. So I'm back in school. The medicine's got control of me. My behavior greatly excels. I'm coming home with an E for excellent for conduct, but my grades, they plummeted so hard that they took me out of honors classes and threw me into special ed and designated me mentally retarded. I lost all semblance of friends. I didn't feel like I had a family anymore. Family wasn't there for me. Until one day, I was getting picked on and the other special ed kids were getting picked on, and I got in a fight. I was tired of it. And I beat a kid up and I got in trouble, and I got home and Grandpa got home from work. We started exchanging words, and I said, hey, I'm not taking this medication anymore. Look what it's doing to me. I'm not myself. I don't know who I am. I can't figure out life. Look, I'm in special ed. Come on. What more proof do you need that this is harming me? He didn't like that. He told me I was going to take my meds. I was like, no, I'm not going to take my meds. Yada, yada, yada. He proceeds to get out of his chair, and I know what that means, so I start running away. So running down the hallway to try to get to my door to lock it and put something in front of it. Usually that would mean pushing my bed up against it. And I didn't get there fast enough. So he grabbed me by my throat, lifted me up, held me up against the wall while I cried and smacked me around and told me I was going to take those damn meds. So I complied. And as I mentioned earlier, full of suicidal thoughts, I decided this is the perfect time. Let's do it. Tonight's the night. They went to bed. I went into the kitchen. Most of my med bottles were full, and I took all of them. And I was ready to go, guys. Done. Checked out. The next steps are like a blur. I thought that I was having a nightmare of The Exorcist with projectile vomiting and being drugged down a hall and then flashes of an ambulance. And then a couple days later, waking up in the hospital, paralyzed from the head down, listening to doctors tell my grandparents, we don't know if Taylor is ever going to be able to live a normal life, let alone be able to move or walk again on his own. But here I am. I can move. Things are okay. They're not bad. They're actually great. We got past that. And during that time, there was this realization that I was overcome with of, all right, I'm going to have to do this world by myself. I'm going to have to figure out life on my own. No one else is willing to help me. I'm going to have to do it on my own. Where do I start? Well, I'm moving again. I can walk. That's a good start. But what do I do about all these thoughts and the scariness inside of my head, this fear? And that's where these steps start to come into play. I started to examine my mind. I started to examine the way that I thought, the way that I felt. And I started to recognize that I don't like thinking this way. I don't like feeling this way. I don't like it at all. Okay, what don't I like about it? I start examining it, right? This is our first step, guys. This is recognition. And you've all probably heard this in some way, shape, or form before. But I'm hoping that today you don't hear these 3 steps the way that I'm going to tell it to you. Because it goes far beyond just noticing, hey, I don't like this thought, I don't like this feeling. How does this thought make me feel? How do I want to feel? How do I want to think? How do I want the world to see me? How do I want to be perceived? What image do I want to put out in the world? What do I want to accomplish? Who do I want to be? All of these questions arise, and they should arise during the recognition phase. The recognition phase is an exploration of yourself. It was of myself. And I needed that. And it's a very powerful tool. Very, 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 very powerful tool to recognize and then decide, make the conscious internal decision of this is not who I want to be. This is not how I want to think. I don't want to think like this. I don't want to think about suicide. I don't want to think about hating myself or hating the world or being mad at everybody or this guy or that person or this person or that person. All of these things, I don't want it. They make me feel like this. I want to feel like this. I want to think like that. I want to act like this. Okay, great. Now that we've recognized all of that, now what? Well, we pivot, right? A lot of you have heard that before. You pivot, you turn, you get away from the thing, you get away from the underperformers, you get away from the things that aren't serving you. But for me, that step was a little bit different. My pivot process involved boxes. If there were any movers in the room, I'm giving you a shout out for your boxes because they help me in my mind. Let's start with my mom. And that can be broken up into subcategories. The moment that I start to have a negative thought, a negative perception, a thought that's driving a negative feeling, I try to shove it in that box. And this box could be labeled mom. Simple, right? Okay, but not so much. Because 5 seconds later, it's starting to crawl back out. And it's coming at you. It's coming back. And then you put it back in, and then 5 seconds later, it's back. And you're here, and you're there, and you're here, and you're there, and you're here, and you're there, and you're here, and you're there. The pivot process of trying to get away from a thought in your own mind isn't always, oh, hey, don't think about that. Many of you that might have tried to meditate might notice that you can't shut off your brain. You can't stop thinking. Very similar. And sometimes it takes a lot of repetition. And for me, thinking about suicide, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, this is what it was like, the pivot process. 5 seconds goes by, I didn't think about suicide. Another 5 seconds goes by, oh, there it is, oh, box open. 5 seconds, no, 5 seconds, no, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds, days, weeks, months, until finally 5 seconds turns into 10. 10 seconds turns into 15. 15 seconds turns into 30. 30 turns into a minute turns into 2. 2 turns into 5, 5 turns into 10. And I'm putting it in these tiny little categories so you understand that while in some occasions this may be a simple recognize, pivot away from the negative action and head towards the positive and stay focused, but a lot of times, and for a lot of people, especially in deeply traumatic situations, that pivot process is going to be tough. It's going to be long, and you're going to have to fight and you're going to have to endure. I felt like my brain was its own personal little hell that was built just specially for me. And that I'm deep in this hole of a hell, and I'm inching and clawing to try to get my way up. But every time that I get up an inch, I get kicked back down, and I get up an inch and I'm back down, and I get up an inch and I'm back down. It was a brutal mental fight. So much so that I would be down on the floor crying, wondering how to get past this. And I'm doing this by myself in my room. Because I didn't have anybody. And then finally, I start to have my boxes neatly aligned. And then we go into our final step. We start to focus. So we've recognized and we've identified what we want, and now we've got control, and we've pivoted away, and we've got all of our negative thoughts and emotions, and we've got them in our respective boxes, and the lids, they're on tight. Now we can start to focus and start heading towards the direction, the thoughts, the feelings, everything that we want, the actions. We can start taking them, and we can do it consistently. Because you can't be consistent without focus, guys. You've got to be able to stay focused with it. You have to. If you don't, you're just spinning your wheels. See, when I was up in that debate class and then I moved into theater and then I got into that step, I learned a big, valuable lesson in theater. I got up my first time I was speaking and my legs just teleported to like the San Andreas fault line and they started shaking independently in my upper half. It was like it was 30 degrees colder down there. And then when I was talking, it was kind of, a little bit more like that. And it was miserable. So much so that I went to the counselor. I was like, yo, counts, I'm out, can't do it, put me in another class. She said, no, Taylor, we don't have any other room, you're gonna have to stay there. But I stayed focused. I said, okay, I didn't quit, I kept going, and now all of a sudden, I'm comfortable talking in front of everybody. I even danced in front of people. I did a little dance competition, a little number like this, and it was fun, and it was giddy. And I lost, but this time, I was okay with losing. Because I learned how to recognize, pivot, and focus. Those are very, very, very important steps. They were for me. They don't just apply, though, to emotional health or intelligence. They apply to your business. They apply to mine. Today, get away from past Taylor, all the little traumatic events, the boo-hoos. Today, I'm a business owner. I own multiple businesses. I am an advisory board member of a nonprofit. I chair a committee, a minimum of at least 6 nonprofit events every year, some of which I've started and created myself. I'm far from that little kid that was in special ed, designated mentally retarded. I'm far from the kid that was paralyzed thinking about killing himself. But it's not a smooth journey, guys. I really hope that I'm getting that across well. Because when you start going through those steps, you're not going to succeed all the time. Even after that theater bout in high school, I got another trigger, and all of a sudden, all of my boxes opened back up. So what do? Well, for me, I didn't know what to do. That was the first time that it happened. So I got right back on that edge of killing myself again. So I self-harmed. And when you think of self-harm, you think of people that are doing it here on their wrist or maybe here on the inner thigh, keeping it hidden. I didn't do that. I self-harmed publicly because I wanted help. So I took a razor blade and gashed here, 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 here where the hair doesn't grow on my eyebrow, and here under my eye. I took a picture of my bloody face and chest and put it as my MySpace profile picture, begging for help. And when people asked what happened, I told them I was riding my bike and I fell. There was glass everywhere. Scared to admit the truth. But the shocking thing was, nobody noticed that I was lying. Everyone was like, okay, you fell. So that was my kick in the pants to get back up and fight again. And then I went back to my 3 steps. And I kept going. And then I learned to go and self-explore my boxes. And that's important. You hear people say having time to feel and having time with your feelings is important. But there can be too much and there can be too little. So for me, my technique with that is scheduling time. I recognize a thought or a trigger. I recognize a feeling. And it wasn't a planned feeling. And my heart starts racing because the adrenaline's going. And I start to feel anxious. But then I catch it. I recognize it. I pivot quickly. And I say, hey, I'm going to deal with you Friday between 3 and 4. Get your butt back into the box and I'll open you then. And it works. All of my anxiety goes away. All of my guilt for not dealing with it. My wonder of why am I feeling this way is gone. It's an amazing thing when you start to implement it and you do it consistently. So before I finish today, I want to share with you guys my bags. My bags are my big, hairy, audacious goals. What that means is, in the next 12 months, you're going to see me open up 3 stores. The next 12 months after that, we're going to open up 10 more, total of 13. Next 12 months, we're going to open up 25, and we're going to keep going, we're going to keep going, we're going to keep going until we open up 100. 2 to 3 years down the road, we're going to open up something massive. Can't tell you about that yet, but it's going to be huge. And you're going to love it. And you're all going to help us build it, whether you know it or not. And this isn't just for money, because along with that business timeline, there's a community timeline. See, next year in 2025, you're going to see a community event put on in Montgomery County, the likes that you've never seen here in this county. We're going to do it. You watch. Then the next year after that, we're going to open up our own nonprofit. It's going to be called, respectfully, Living for Two. This year, I got to get to know some of my mom's friends from high school. This is how I know she was a real cool cat. Her friends, 30 years after she died, found me. You know what that means? 30 years later, a core group of my mom's friends were thinking and talking about my mother. In 17 years of her life, she made such an impact on this core group of people that 30 years later, they're talking about her. That's cool, man. I want to have that impact. That's why I'm living for two. I'm not just living for myself. I'm living for her, and I'm living for me. The shoes that she has, I must fill, and then I absolutely must fill my own. And we're going to make and leave such a large positive impact on this world, guys. I'm not afraid to put it out there. Because if I were, and I was afraid to share my bags with y'all, how could I ever expect my dreams to come true if I'm too afraid to put my dreams out there in a room full of people like you? I want my dreams to be seen by the world. I'm going to achieve them, and I'm not afraid if I don't. I'm not afraid if I miss my mark, if I'm 2 years, out farther than I should be or farther than I promised you here today. How can we expect our dreams to turn into reality if we're so afraid to share it with other people? And how could we ever expect to get past our pain or the things that are holding us back if we can't put those out there for all to see as well? So today you've gotten to know my scars, you've gotten to know my bags, and I'm so excited to see each and every one of you excel towards yours. You all have them. Don't be afraid to put them out there. Your dreams are important. Cling on to them and head after them with all you've got. Thank you all so much.